Okay, on to this week's Street Talk. I wasn't really a fan of this week's Coronation Street, Gemma. I found it a little bit dull. What did you think?
It's possible that might be a fairly common
Might be
reaction.
a shared... I don't know whether it's like the post-Super Soap Week lull or things like that. There just wasn't a whole lot that grabbed me, and it kind of did make me realise how much the Stephen story was keeping me going and carrying me on and keeping me interested in what was going on in Corrie.
Well, this is definitely a bit of a... I don't know. Were they relying on the Stephen storyline? Is there much else to be getting on with? I mean, as much as it divided people, it was certainly something that people were talking about. I mean, who's talking about Ed's gambling? Who's talking about Courtney not getting a job? I mean, as much as they're all interesting, they're certainly not that.
They're no Stephen Reed serial killer.
But then again, you know, we talk about old school Corrie and we praise it for the slice of life kind of things that are actually quite interesting in the interpersonal drama. But again, Corrie just doesn't give people enough time on screen for me to really give a crap about, you know, X, Y, and Z's reaction to.
I am finding that a bit, even though the Ed story, like you said, is kind of a bit more slice of life sort of thing. I don't know. It still does kind of strike me as not being completely relatable with all this money going in and coming out and being involved in businesses and shares, and because especially with Ronnie, but also Ed to some extent as well, they haven't given us enough in the past to really engage with or care for these characters enough. It's not as
really
easy
like the
to
Baileys,
get into. I like the Baileys generally, but this story's not particularly doing it for me. I mean, they obviously the Daisy and Ryan stuff has been the big story this year, but I've spoken quite a bit about that and how it's kind of waned in interest for me over the.
I don't think you're alone.
months.
I'm going to say I've seen lots of comments from Corrie fans who are saying it turned from a really interesting acid attack story into a affair story. We could have had an affair, and I said this myself, we could have had an affair story without having the window dressing of everything to do with this. And kind of, it's so frustrating because we're seeing Ryan recovering from an incredibly traumatic event, and yeah, okay, we got to see him trying to deal with it in a very unhealthy way with his online
with his
fan
Ovids
stuff, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But what about his hospital appointments? What about his pain levels? What about his medicine? Has he had any has he had infections? Has he had setbacks? Is it tight? Does it feel painful? Can he move his neck from side to side? This is something that you'll never be able to have a story about Coronation Street again for at least a decade, because you've got to leave gaps between very specific stories like this.
Yeah,
and
one might say the same about serial killers.
Whatever.
I know. I mean, it is true that as much as it's good to raise awareness of certain issues and medical conditions and whatever.
Have they?
They've made me look out for acid. If somebody's standing in front of me with a glass of what looks like water, I'm ducking.
Yeah, before this story, I was like, I don't care if I get acid in the face. It's fine. I'm not even bothered.
Probably just stings a bit.
Modern medicine will better get rid of it immediately, and I'll have no ill effects whatsoever.
Yeah. Well,
now Corrie's taught me.
Yeah, now I'm worried that if I do get acid in my face, I'm going to have beautiful young ladies throwing themselves at me. And what would I do? What would I do then, Gemma?
Tell you what, you get a good hiding off me.
No, but it's the characters, unfortunately for me, of Ryan and Daisy have just been made to be a little bit less likeable because of it, because of the affair. I was enjoying. I'm sure I'll go back to loving Daisy again, but I've been real kind of back and forth with her ever since she came in. And at the beginning of this year, she was kind of riding high as one of my favourite characters, and I loved every single thing that she was in. The stalking storyline, brilliant. But since she's been sniffing around Ryan, and now she's snogged him and been to bed with him. I know she says she's regretting it, but clearly it's leading to more. This isn't the end of that story, surely. It's just kind of made me feel a bit bad about characters that I used to like. So I think The Shining Light still at the moment, the story that's keeping me. I am enjoying the after effects of the come down from the Stephen Reed stuff, but apart from that, it's the Paul story that's really keeping my interest, which is weird because that's not always the case with the medical storylines. It had the potential to be quite depressing, but I think that Peter Ash is doing such an amazing job with it. That's what I'm kind of most looking forward to seeing at the moment, and because we haven't had any of that since the wedding, really, I'm just kind of twiddling my thumbs waiting for that to come back. But anyway, I'm sure we'll find some goodness to talk about in today's Coronation Street, and we've got 6 stories to chat about today. I decided to separate out, originally I had these together in my notes, but I split them up this morning, the funeral stuff from the Peter being arrested stuff, because the funeral is all about Audrey and Tim and all the drama there, and the Peter stuff was about him and Swain and everything. So I've got the Read, Hit and Weep story first, which is the funeral, and then my storyline title for Murderer Peter is The Peterminator. That's his killer name.
Yeah.
Peterminator.
Yeah.
Yeah? No, I'm not really happy with that.
Is he going to get that etched on his sunnies or something?
We have the Ed Gamble story, which I've just gone straight with because I can't even remember what we called it last week before, but Ed Gamble seems to fit. Famous comedian, apparently. Ryan and cheating. Caught skiving is what Courtney was caught doing this week. And then finally, Hope and Gory, which is my storyline title for the Hope Halloween story.
Yay, Halloween.
Which we had teased on Monday's episode. Nothing since, but hopefully it's going to lead to some fun stuff next week. You and Gemma, as our resident Halloween lover on this podcast.
Why doesn't everyone love Halloween as much as I do?
You're excited about Halloween at the Bistro?
It shouldn't really be like an exceptional thing. It's like, I like eating nice food and sitting inside being cosy.
I think I don't not like Halloween, but I'll bow down and admit that you're the one that loves it the most. I think it's fun.
Should be loved.
I think it's fun. So hopefully there's going to be some great Halloween stuff next week on Coronation Street. Maybe Harvey will come back for another pop at Leanne. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Well, would you like to do the Peterminator? Or would you like to do the funeral stuff with the Read, Hit
what you want to do.
and Weep? I'm going to let you take the lead on this one, Gemma. What's been going on with old Tim?
Oh, I love Tim and his flashbacks.
Bloody flashbacks this week.
So on Monday, he's having a bit more flashbacks. He slept on the sofa, and does Elaine leave? I don't know. Did she come back? Who knows?
She's gone. She's gone.
Why did she die?
Why did she come back? Who knows?
Who knows?
But she's getting ready to disappear off to her friends on Monday, isn't she?
Gail and Audrey go to number 11 to see George to organise Stephen's funeral, and it's very awkward because George doesn't want to do this, does he? And he says, "Oh, we're very backed up," but then. But Todd says, yeah, even if we weren't really busy, you'd be putting us in a really difficult position because everyone on the street is very anti-Stephen at the moment, and you're kind of putting a target on our backs here. Because I'm going to say a lot of the work for funeral directors is kind of geographically located.
The thing is, though,
I don't think anyone's going, I'm going to go to Weatherfield from North Wales for my funeral because they are the best. That
Shuttleworth has a sterling reputation.
Young, what is it called? Undertaker of the Year award.
Yeah.
Todd Grimshaw.
If I was Todd and George in this situation, I'd take advantage of it, like knowing where the funeral was going to be, and then like maybe sell tickets afterwards for people to come and dance on his grave.
Yeah, there's lots of things you can do on someone's grave.
Rest Easy
if you
would
don't
do
like
that.
them. Exactly. The extended package.
Yeah.
So they don't really want to do this, but Audrey says, look, what Stephen did was terrible, but he's still got the right to a decent send-off. And Audrey reminds George that Archie organised Richard's funeral, and, Richard killed...
He killed
Maxine.
He could kill Maxine.
There is a bench. There's no bench to Stephen Reed's victims
Rufus
anywhere.
Bench.
Rufus, his wife, what's her face? Can barely remember his name. Teddy and Leo got both taken out together. Who knows where the wife is here? No one cares about them. So if Archie was willing to do a funeral for somebody who killed a beautiful blonde young woman, why not?
Why not his son?
Why not?
He'd want you to do it, George.
Do Stephen. I mean, who did Stephen kill? A bunch of old men. No one cares about them. Sad times, isn't it? So, George...
He had his chance for some others and he just blew it.
Not beautiful enough. Sorry, Teddy, Leo and Rufus. None of you are beautiful young women. So George says, look, I don't know about that, but I've made a decision. And Gail suspects that Eileen has been the one to stop them from doing this funeral.
Little does she know, Eileen's hiding in a
Eileen
box all
doesn't
week
care.
and hasn't been doing anything.
No. Steve and Tim are at the cafe and Steve's annoyed that Tim seems a bit distracted because he's having PTSD and he says, you should come back to work soon. I should come back to work soon. And Steve says, you can't come back to work, you've been signed off. And George comes in and overhears them talking about this and he overhears them telling Roy about Gail coming and wanting to organise a funeral and Tim saying, oh, you'd be blacklisted if you do that, so it's given him pause for thought. But then when Audrey catches George outside the cafe and says, are you sure you won't change your mind, he's still sticking to his guns, and she tries playing the Archie card again and she shames him. Lots of Tim having flashbacks and Elaine leaving and him saying he's fine, and then I don't really know what happened, but Elaine leaves. Doesn't she? She goes away.
She doesn't go straight away. So she's getting her bags ready. She makes a long song and dance about it, as does Tim. Those flashbacks, so unnecessary. Really, really, really didn't need honestly, to see them.
Like, I know we had this. You had your chat with Todd Boyce, and he talked about Stephen, and you brought up the whole elephant in the room, which is the fact that he mentioned at his fan event that they were going to get another 6 months of Stephen, but they decided not to, and the insinuation was that it was people responding to him and not liking the storyline, etc., etc. Yeah, but honestly, I was just going to say, these flashbacks make me think that Todd Boyce had some kind of minimum episode in his contract, and they were like, we've got to get this in, how do we do it? Flashbacks, just have Tim have flashbacks.
Constant daily flashbacks from Tim. Yeah, with you, Todd Boyce did clarify that it was over sort of a year or so ago that they were talking about, should we add an extra 6 months to this? Should we have some time of him and Jenny living a normal life before he eventually got bumped off?
And how dearly would we have all loved that to have happened, but it didn't, so we have to move on with our lives. But
he talked about Ian McLeod wanting to just give it a real filmic kind of quality, a real sort of Hitchcock quality, he said. He also said a different name other than the Hitchcock first, with a bit of a slip of the tongue.
It's not the same.
Not the same thing. Not the same person. And... Yeah. Fine, but you don't need to carry on making it filmic once Stephen's gone.
Anyway.
The murderer's gone, the storyline's over, it's something else. I don't need flashbacks.
Okay, right, I'm going to say this. I'm incredibly biased against him. I hate him so much. It's a joke. I kind of flip between not knowing it's a joke and not. Like, I don't even know. Do I really like him? Is it just a joke? I don't know. But really, unfortunately for Tim, this comes on the back of months and months, if not years, of flashbacks and silly narrative devices that remind us of something that have already happened. And coming as I do from a background of somebody who's also watched loads of anime, it does feel a bit like they were going, oh, we've got to save some money on the animation, what should we do? Let's just reuse a scene. You don't need to do that in live action. Surely you've got reams and reams of footage. You could just use one of the other takes.
Is it like when in those Disney films in the 70s they reused
they
animations
just drew over the top of Snow White and made a whole new film.
The Jungle Book.
Why? Just stop doing it. I don't care.
I get that he's feeling traumatised without having to see it.
Can we think of another way? Right, here's my challenge to Corey. Can you think of another way of demonstrating somebody's mental trauma without doing a flashback again? Because you have so lost the... There's no impact. I don't care anymore. It just feels so cheap.
It's like,
and overdone.
Stick a filter on it, do a little sound effect, there we go.
No, I don't care. And I certainly don't care about Tim. And I'm certainly not interested in seeing a surviving victim of Stephen, because he should have killed Many more people. I don't want to see any of the surviving victims having flashbacks.
These flashbacks are giving me PTSD. I'm going to have flashbacks about flashbacks, and then I'm
Me
going to start
too.
thinking that I was shoved in a
What were
boot
you
by
gonna
Stephen
do?
Reed.
If I'm going to have a flashback of anybody, I want Elaine having a flashback of Stephen making a funny face at her in a microwave.
Yeah, just imagine a dream sequence with Stephen just gunning
What were
at
you
Elaine.
doing? You making a face at me? That's what Jeff would have done. And then she can have a flashback of Jeff being pecked by a chicken, and then Jeff can have a flashback of Yasmin in a box, and then Yasmin can we can go on forever, can't we? But maybe we should just stop doing it altogether. What do you think?
British soaps have no place for that kind of thing.
It's
I'm
just
gonna
really,
say. And call me a traditionalist if you like, and a old
what's
stick
the
in the mud.
purpose of a flashback?
To let us know what they're thinking.
To let us know what they're thinking and to remind us of what happened. We know what happened and we can guess what they're thinking. I'm going to say that all the actors in Coronation Street who are important enough to have flashbacks are going to be competent enough at acting for us to see their faces and to know they might be having a bit of a meltdown. We don't need a flashback. I hate it. Stop it.
They've done good similar things in the past, normally I'd be against this sort of thing, but they have done some good dream sequences.
Dreams
the
are
sequence
fine,
where Andy was
different.
whacking a tuba for Phelan, that was brilliant. The one where Yasmin was in prison and she wakes up and there's a whole room full of Jeffs there.
Those are fine.
Absolutely love that, and that's definitely not traditional Corrie territory. But yeah, just as I say, replaying a bit of an old scene, putting a filter over it, jobs are good. And
don't do old clips of something that happened last week.
Yeah.
We know what happened. That's why we're watching the show. I've got no tolerance for it anymore. I'm sorry, it's just ridiculous.
We should start just filling time in our podcast by putting clips from last week up.
Well,
that'll test how many people.
Before, didn't we?
That'll test how many people are actually listening and concentrating on this. Every time we fancy having a rant about special effects and experimental editing, just put in the clip of us doing it before, and then we save breath.
Honestly.
Anyway, back to the show, Gemma.
So Todd and George are talking about whether they should do the funeral, and Todd doesn't want to, but George is feeling guilty. Steve finds Tim having a quiet moment in Victoria Gardens, and he really wants to go back to work. And Sally finds them because everyone's looking.
Oh yeah, Tim's gone missing, and obviously when somebody goes missing on Coronation Street, they're going to be in Victoria Gardens. Maybe the precinct at a push. I don't understand why search parties aren't over and done within about 60 seconds.
So Tim's saying he wants chips.
Now, he said that's the reason why he didn't
He lied.
come home. He said he wanted chips. But yeah, he actually wanted a flashback.
And I don't... Listen, the thing about this is I don't want to belittle anybody's experience and mental health issues and PTSD, but I just think that Corrie's doing it. They're cheapening this concept. And we've made jokes before about it, and people who work on the show said, not everyone can, realistically respond to the very traumatic things that happen, because then everyone would have PTSD. And this is just a demonstration of why that's completely true. No, we don't need everybody talking about what happened last week and how sad that it made them feel. We're over it now.
Just imagine, if a whole week was Ed's had a flashback of last week when he really lost his money. Courtney's had a flashback of...
Imagine if instead of David's reign of terror and all of the stuff he did as a reaction to Richard Hillman, staging his suicide to get back at Sarah and pushing his mum down the stairs and going on a rampage with an axe. Imagine if that was just a week of him having a flashback of being driven into the canal for the following week after Richard Hillman's death. Imagine if that was it.
We have clip shows for things like that. Not needed in the main show.
But let's be... honestly, it just feels so creatively bankrupt to just have a black and white flashback. I want to do flashback watch. Coronation Street this year. How many times have you done it? Just honestly, just stop it now. So I'm sorry, I don't normally get this stridently.
I think it was me that set you off on this.
It just is
I'm
so
feeling quite
boring,
passionate about it as well.
And it's unfortunately it's a character I don't really like, and
it's not helping to elicit any sympathy from you.
That's
for him,
the thing.
is it?
It doesn't make me feel sorry for him at all.
It doesn't.
And I'm going to say also, there's a definite bias here, and I think this is awful, but this is definitely cultural, about men showing their feelings. Like, he's a I'm going to call him middle class, even though he would probably describe himself as working class, because he owns a business. He lives in a very nice house. I don't think, who knows what working class means anymore. But he's a grown man, he's middle-aged, he's got kids and a wife, he's got his own house and a business. So the amount of sympathy that is meted out to somebody like that is not very high when they go through something, because we kind of assume that as a grown man you should be able to manage your feelings, etc. That's awful. I'm not saying that's a good attitude to have, but can you challenge that attitude by having a tired trope that's been used and overused on Coronation Street time and time again of a flashback? I don't think so. Is it challenging anybody's thoughts about that? They could really do something about male mental health, but then they did that with Steve, not, within memory.
And Aidan, obviously.
Well,
the one thing that made me feel an iota of sympathy for Tim this week, honestly, was his final scene on Wednesday's episode, where he's standing there at the door. Sally's, was she having a nag at him? I can't remember. And he's like, "Oh, Sal, I'm just really scared," or something. He has a bit of a wobble and then a hug.
Do you know
that
why?
one moment there, which didn't come after a flashback, that was acting.
That was acting. That was trusting the performers and the audience to to get what you know. It feels like distrusting. It just feels very cheap.
Anyway, must move on.
Everybody knows what I'm saying. Does anyone want to say that they think that
any proponents of flashbacks here?
Yeah.
Don't be scared.
Right in, because honestly, if you can account for yourself in a logical way and put forward your evidence, we'll read it out. And often I agree with people who say something that is gone against what I. It doesn't mean I'm going to change my mind. But I just don't believe anyone likes these flashbacks. I just genuinely don't think so.
I know someone who does. Ian McLeod.
I'm not even going to say.
Thinks they're great.
Right, so Tim and Elaine get in the car. Does she go? Yeah, hopefully.
She's gone.
Gone forever. George is back at number 4 and he's getting the details about Audrey, from Audrey and Gail, about what Stephen wanted. And George's not so sure that they should bury him because somebody might dig him up and bring him back to life. Maybe that'd be fun.
No, they say about that maybe the headstone will be
abused.
Yeah, I was going to say defecated there, but I don't think that's the right.
Some people might. No, that's not what you meant to say, was it? Audrey's trying to insist on this, and George talks defaced, talks her into having a cremation, and she just wants a small service with just the family. I'm really surprised that George had to be talked into this.
Well, considering how in the past he's been very much, customer first, let's make everybody feel happy and lovely, etc., etc. I suppose he was thinking more of the neighbours nearby and maybe would it be bad for the reputation of the company. But he really needed quite a lot of cajoling before he.
I'd like to see some kind of consequence of this. Like, is he going to lose business?
Yeah, maybe. Have old, what's his face from Rest Easy?
I don't know.
Lording it all over him.
Honestly, Audrey and Gail could have gone to Rest Easy and asked them to do a Stephen special, and they would have had a blast, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
They would have done loads of extras.
Yeah.
Right, so on Tuesday we get another flashback, and Tim's having a meal with Sally at the Bistro, and he's.
Are you glad that I gave this story to you?
No one wants me to read this out. And then she asks him, "Is Stephen going to be?" No, he says, "Is Stephen going to be cremated?" And then
Sally says yes, hopefully. There's not going to be any bits of it. Do you want me to take
She says if there's any justice in the world, he'll be cremated, as though being cremated is a punishment for people who are dead. What a stupid thing to say.
Maybe she's been watching too much Zombiesy and she thinks that if he's not cremated, there's just the tiniest chance that he might come back as an undead zombie.
Coronation Street meant this to sound quite so ignorant, but I'm going to tell you...
It is Sally talking, though.
If your loved one was cremated, it has no reflection upon their life. What the hell are you talking about? Tim comes back from work. He doesn't want to hear Steve's inane banter about the oldest cathedral in the UK. I guess was Canterbury, and I was right.
You got that one.
Back at number 8. Hooray! David's telling Audrey...
I like the cathedral chat. Didn't get a shout out for Coventry Cathedral, sadly, from my home turf. Everybody knows that's the best cathedral.
No, it's the worst.
Not the oldest. So.
No, not really. Back at number 8, Dave is telling Audrey that Stephen doesn't deserve a funeral, and if there is one, he doesn't want to go. And they have a bickering, and Audrey leaves.
That was very unusual, wasn't it? I get how they wanted the funeral to be quite small.
I think David would think it was funny and go for a laugh.
Yeah.
I mean, he went to Billy and Paul's wedding because he thought it was funny to go to a gay wedding, as far as I can work out, and also said that Shona couldn't go. What about Shona? Does Shona want to go to a serial killer's funeral?
Yeah, she's not done that before.
No,
at least the others have.
On your bucket list. If you're in Corrie, going to a serial killer's funeral is like a super cool event.
I think that David, you're right. I think that maybe he would just go for the laugh. But anyway, maybe Jack Shepherd wasn't available on the Friday, on the Wednesday episode filming or something.
Tim's parked in the precinct later. He's having a kip, and does he have a flashback? I don't know.
Probably.
But Steve's trying to get him on the radio to pick up Beth at Freshco's, and he goes and he gets
high drama here, Gemma. Do you remember this?
And there's there's a rival company called Go Lucky, and she's going to get into their car because he was late.
Yeah.
And then they get into a bidding war about who's going to do it for cheaper. And there's a cliffhanger where we
was
have a
the
break.
lamest break cliffhanger.
Is Beth going to go with...
Go Appy or Streetcars? Come back in 3 minutes to find out. And
Go Lucky.
Tell you what did I say something else?
Go Appy.
Go Lucky, sorry. Yeah, tell you what, just Trevor and Connie were on the edge of their seats on that one, weren't they? What do you think's going to happen next, Connie? Who's she going to go with?
One thing I think one thing, and then the next minute I think another thing.
No, I think she's going to go with Streetcars.
Which one he's going to be? And Connie's like, no more speaking.
Nobody cares, Trevor. Shut up.
Nobody gives a crap.
I would, if it was me, I'd have got into a bidding war to not take Beth.
I know. Annoying, mouthy.
Who wants Gobby Beth in the back of your cab?
With a prawn ring in her bag, or whatever she had. So she says she's going to go in the Go Lucky cab because he gives her 50% off. And then Tim grabs the keys out of the ignition and throws them into the car park. And so Beth gets in the car with Tim. And then as they're driving off, Beth makes a rude gesture at the Go Lucky cab driver. Like,
did she?
What are you... Well, she kind of waves sarcastically.
It's
you never want to go in this cab firm again. You kind of blacklisted yourself as a customer because of why? He got there when the other guy wouldn't turn up and he offered you 50% off. And the only reason you got in Tim's cab was because he threw the keys. How is this a personal triumph for you, Beth?
I don't know.
It just made no sense. So
I think that's probably what she would do.
Just being
she admired his getting on someone's wick.
Yeah. Tim's driving Beth down Victoria Street. He just off to sleep and he nearly swerves into an oncoming car. And then Beth stomps out and gives Tim a good telling off. And then they go to Beth's flat and Tim's talking to a police officer outside the cab office because this other cab driver's complained to the police about him throwing the keys. But Beth steps in to defend Tim and saying, oh no, he was awful and blah, blah, blah.
The other guy was.
He helped me out. So the officer leaves and Beth tells Steve what really happened, including the fact that Tim fell asleep. And so Steve gets mad in the cafe later when he finds out that the Shuttleworths are going to do Stephen's funeral. And he warns them that when Tim finds out, he's going to go flipping postal.
Flipping postal,
now,
says Steve.
Is not the story about Stephen a story about a man going flipping postal? Do you know what that means?
Yeah.
What does going postal mean?
Chucking bins around the back alley, isn't it?
No, it doesn't. It's based on an American thing where postal workers went nuts and started murdering people at work.
Oh, they should have done that in the 60s with Corrie and had
That's
Frank
basically
Barlow and Alf Roberts doing it.
That's basically what Stephen's been doing, murdering people at work. I think it was a bit of a bad... I mean, we don't really have the cultural connections to going postal in this country anymore.
You know what
but
I mean.
It was a weird thing to say. Sally gets home from work later. Tim tells her about having an argument and she says he needs to apologise to Steve, so he goes and apologises to George instead.
Oh yeah, I was kind of losing interest
and
at
George
this point, but
like,
somehow he might worked his way over to number
George,
11. I don't know what he was apologising
He
to
thinks
George
that
for,
they're not doing the funeral, but then he finds out they are.
Oh.
And George says Stephen's got the same right to a proper funeral as everyone else, and Tim says, well, I'm not going.
Oh yeah, because Todd comes in, he kind of bumbles in and drops him in it.
He's not going to get one as far as I'm concerned. What does Tim want? Does he want him to be like a sky burial, like when they put you out on a mountain and you get a bunch of what are they called? Vultures come and peck your eyes out, except it would be sad little Weatherfield pigeons.
I think he's just going to go and like grab the corpse and hoard it and go, no, you're not having him, he's mine.
Don't bury him. I want flashbacks forever. Me and Stephen, we had a moment. Right.
Well,
on
we
Wednesday,
find out what he means on Wednesday.
Tim's distracted.
He doesn't have any flashbacks on Wednesday, at least. I don't think.
Sally's like, get over it. He's going to get buried, and the sooner the better, right? That's correct. George warns Gail and Audrey that Tim knows about this funeral, and he's threatening to ruin it. And Sally comes around to see Gail, and there's a nice scene when they talk about they're not going to not be friends anymore because everyone... Whatever. I don't care. In the cafe.
But that was nice. That was a nice
I'm
little
sorry, I don't
Gillian
care about
Sally
it. This whole week I don't care about. I wish I'd not seen it.
Oh my god.
I'm over
it. Only in the first story.
In the cafe, Tim's telling Steve, I need to get back to taxiing. And then Swain comes along and says to Peter, which is a different story.
Oh no, that's a different story. Forget that. We'll come back to that later.
Right, so then we get
these
Stephen's funeral, and they're about to drive the hearse away, and Tim comes along and he says, using my Neanderthal logic, Tim, have decided that because I don't want the funeral to happen, I'm going to blockade it so it lasts the longest amount of time it could possibly do. What a stupid idiot. He blocks it in, and then he has a go at everybody about Stephen trying to kill him. And everyone's like, oh, I wish he had killed you. No, they should have said that. And Audrey says you're being spiteful and petty. And then he breaks the key in the lock of his car to prove that she's right. And then Kevin turns up to tow Tim away. And Tim saying, don't touch my car. I don't want this funeral to happen. What does he think's going to happen if the funeral doesn't take place? They're just going to, turf him into the Seb's memorial garden.
Might as well just keep him here in the Undertaker's then and let him rot.
Yeah, forever. And then you know where he is exactly at all times. You can come and visit him and have your flashbacks in private. Right, so Audrey's worried they're going to miss their slot because already they had a last-minute cancellation and only managed to fit them in at the last minute. Gail thinks Sally's going to be able to talk sense into him, so she arrives and tries to get Kevin to move the car. And she says, I hate Stephen too for what he did, but this isn't the time or the place. And he strides off and he wants some alone time. He gets mad at Sally and doesn't want to talk to her. And then Gail's like, I don't want to go to this funeral anymore. I was really excited about it, but now Tim's made me feel bad. Gail tells Audrey that what Stephen has done has left Tim a broken man and he killed people and I can't go. And Audrey and Sarah are like, well, there's mini sandwiches, so we're still going. And Gail's left with Sally on the pavement, and Gail says that Tim was right, Stephen was a monster, my brother, and then they drive off, and there was a...
No, they head off for a brew, don't they? Sally and Gail, but back at number 8. But there's another little car suspiciously following after them that turns out to be a pap.
Oh, back at number 8, Gail talks to Sally about letting Audrey down when she's at her most vulnerable, and Sally says she'll come around. And it's not too late. If you want to go to the funeral, I'll take you. So Steve sits with Tim outside the chip shop later, and they talk together. And then it turns out they get a notification. I can just imagine both of these being avid local news aficionados to the extent where they have an alert on their phone when Weatherfield Gazette updates anything. Can you imagine if we had that on the Daily Echo? Like, oh, there's another road, there's another traffic jam. Oh no, the local, I don't know, schools are closed. I don't care.
What about our local serial killer? We haven't got one, but if we did, that'd probably be on there.
I wouldn't like that in real life, just to be clear. So they get a news alert, and it is Weatherfield Crematorium. It's definitely not Fresh Ghost. It's definitely not the hospital. It's definitely not the Tony Warren building. It is definitely got a sign that says Weatherfield Crematorium.
So that's how you know that's what it is. It's just,
like in the Cotswolds, they have all that lovely blonde brick everywhere. And so it all looks the same. In Weatherfield, they really love that dark grey bricks. And so everything looks like it might be the same building, but it isn't. Trust us.
I know we're into a bit of a moan fest and I'm not helping with this, but I really wish that they would just go out and film somewhere else a little bit sometimes. I know they do. I know they've had location shoots. But every time...
If you're going to do a photo, just make a background of different coloured brick.
It takes me
a
away
photo.
from it.
It was literally a photo.
It was a photograph.
And the thing is that what they're doing now with having all their Coronation Street The Experience tours, everyone knows what that building looks like now.
Well, and it does, like you say, look like the hospital and frescoes and many other buildings.
And it
just makes it feel a little bit cheap.
It's a very distinct look. There are not very many buildings that look like that.
I was hoping that we would actually get to see the funeral today. And not only did we not get to see his final, memorial, all we got to see was a little pap photo of them against the wall in my head I was like, that's just the wall.
Right.
So it just took me out of it, so it was even worse.
So the headline is Mourning a Murderer, and Sally and Gail are in the photo. So
he was mourning noon and night a murderer.
Very betrayed. And when Sally gets home, she gets an earful from Tim. And Sally said, look, I've supported my friend. I'm sorry I took Gail there. And this is when the scene that should have been the only scene we got happened, where they trust their actors and their scriptwriters and everybody else involved to
emote,
to just have a human connect. Do you have a human connection to a flashback? It's not a Saw movie. We don't need to see how the trap was set. Tim says, look, I had nightmares. I've had a bunch of flashbacks. I think I'm a main character in the story now. And it's really haunting me. It's making me upset. It feels like it's never gonna stop. And so Sally gives him a hug and he hugs her back. And that should have been the only scene we got. We didn't need flashbacks. We didn't need Tim sulking and acting like a baby. It doesn't make me feel any different towards him.
I'm kind of hoping that will be the end of the flashbacks.
As somebody who didn't like Tim, surely even the Tim fans could have said that was the strongest scene that Tim had.
Yeah, was anybody really cheering Tim on when he was parked in front of the Shuttleworths? Maybe they were, because there has been an awful lot of anti-Audrey sentiment online this week, hasn't there?
Yeah.
I've seen an awful lot of people saying, oh, Audrey, you see, your son was a murderer, he doesn't deserve anything, blah, 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 blah. And it's really difficult for me to distance myself from the fact that I thought that Stephen was a really great character, and also that he didn't really kill anyone that important, and that there's just a lot more reasons why I was hoping that Stephen would get a better send-off.
I definitely have a big sentimental funeral.
I am completely Team Audrey on this. She had the carpet pulled out from underneath her in finding out exactly what he'd been like. And the 60 years worth of love that she had for him, well, 30 plus another 30 when he wasn't part of her life, I just can't see how that can completely vanish into thin air just because you found out about these terrible things that he's done. She's not going to turn her back on him and say, well, screw you then, Stephen, never loved you anyway. She's going to feel a sense of loss. If anything, she's lost the Stephen that she thought she knew. Mm-hmm. She's not burying Stephen the serial killer. She's burying Stephen, the son that came into her life, that she abandoned as a child, that came into her life, that was, she was really proud of because of all the success he'd had in business. So of course that she wanted to have a funeral. I get that Tim wasn't happy with it. I think that if, in real life, take away all the drama and soapiness of it, if a serial killer, somebody, one of our neighbours turned out to be a serial killer, and it turned out that, you knew when his funeral was, maybe you'd think, oh, well, I'm not going to that. I don't know, but I certainly wouldn't park my car in front of the hearse to stop it happening. I'd just maybe quietly let them get on with it and feel self-righteous by glaring at them through the window as the hearse left.
That's the British way.
It just came across as very, very childish by Tim,
which
like is in character. It winds me up a little bit because I don't like characters acting really childish, because often it seems like it's being done for laughs, like with George and Todd and all their bickering over the Todd working for Rest Easy. These are all grown people, and I wish that they would act like it a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, like we said before, there's no inner monologue of characters in a soap, really. And so, unless they've got a confidant, it's difficult for us to know what they're going through mentally. And so it's very tempting to create a story scenes where they're physically doing something to demonstrate their mental anguish. And it's very easy to sort of say this makes sense that he would do this, because then we can all see in a very easy shorthand way how the lengths that Tim's going to go to demonstrate his upset. And, you know, at the end of the day, if you didn't have these scenes, what would you have? A bunch of scenes with Sally and Tim on the sofa talking about their feelings? I don't really know what you would have instead. I just don't want flashbacks.
I can kind of see Tim's side of it. If I'd been smacked over the head and strangulated and nearly died and had my locked in a boot and had petrol poured over me, I'd probably have the heebie-jeebies from it as well.
This is the trouble.
He's got every right to feel traumatised, but the way that they're showing it is
it's such a hacky way of doing it.
But I guess that there would be people who were more on Tim's side that probably did enjoy it, but it wasn't us.
But even if you liked it, surely everyone can agree that flashbacks are overdone now.
How did you what did you think about Sally going along to the funeral? Do you think that was she right to do it to support her friend, or should she have kind of read the room a little bit in number 6 and maybe just dropped her off at the gate?
I think Tim in time will realise that she was doing the best for her friend. I don't know why Gail couldn't have been comforted by her daughter and mother. You know, why does she need Sally there? I'm not really sure. There
was obviously a little bit of contrived drama. When Gail suddenly announced, actually, you know what, I don't think I'm going to go to the funeral. I thought, well, what's going on here? What's the point of that? And it was then tied up and resolved very quickly afterwards. But it did include a lovely Sally and Gail friendship scene, which I always enjoy.
I think they missed an opportunity here, and I don't know. There's so much going on, but I think true crime has kind of evolved over the past 20 years, especially with podcasts in the last 10 to 5 years, where everything's a lot more victim centric, but also people are really starting to think about the family of these murderers as also being additional victims. And there's a lot with Dennis Rader's daughter. She's called Kerry Rawson, and she's written a book about what it was like to realise that her father was a serial killer. And in no way is anybody saying that these people are as much of a victim as the people that were actually killed, but the idea of having the rug pulled out from underneath you so completely as to realise that, I mean, we can sympathise with people that have been cheated on, and this just feels like an even more deep and more betrayal version of that, where somebody lied to you for years and snuck around and did stuff that you didn't know they were doing and was a completely different person to the person that you thought that they were. So the idea of sort of following Gail and Audrey and Sarah, I'd love to see more of that. I wanted to see Michael too, talking about his he felt about it. When we had that scene with Rufus being killed and Michael was in thrall of Stephen's kind of story, he doesn't even know that story was about Rufus being killed. We ever going to get to see that? No.
Is he going to put two and two together and realise?
So all these people are like the additional fallout, because the thing is about it, no one cares about Rufus's wife, what's her face, anymore. No. Teddy and Leo were father and son. I don't know what other family they had. So we don't have the victims' families of Stephen to talk about. The only person's left is Tim. So he's kind of representing all the victims, but he wasn't actually even killed. And then you've got Audrey and that family, and then you've also got and Michael, who was victimised by him.
You got Jenny.
I know, but yeah, Jenny's doing a good job. I just feel like we're missing a trick.
I think that there could have been really
flashbacks for Tim all week. We could have had a week of ramifications. But I'm moving on.
I would like to have seen the funeral scene, because I think there could have been a really touching moment when it could have been quite atmospheric. Just the 2, 3 of them, 4 of them with Sally there. Maybe maybe Sarah Louise and Audrey sitting at the front, George there with the coffin about to go past the curtain
What
or what have you. Maybe holding hands, Audrey having a bit of a cry, Sarah comforting her. And then you hear Gail and Sally clip-clopping in around the back, and it could have been really, really touching and heartwarming. But I guess Corrie maybe wanted us to feel more sorry for Tim than Audrey. I don't think they're really pushing for us to feel that much sympathy for Audrey at the moment, unfortunately.
No, lots of people hate Audrey. Honestly, she didn't do anything wrong.
No, she really didn't. I think she's reacting in just the way you would.
I mean, she's not having flashbacks of giving him up as a kid and being obnoxious like Tim is.
She's just getting on with it.
Look, how has Corrie managed? I know that it's kind of easy for me, but how has Corrie managed to make Tim annoying and Audrey more sympathetic when... I know, but there are loads of people that feel the other way around about it. Maybe that's a good thing then. Maybe Corrie's done a great balance between the two, but...
Before we move on, can I just say one positive thing about this story? I did have a bit of a chuckle with the line about Barney down the sinkhole. Gail talking about having Stephen buried in the back garden with Barney, and she's like, well, of course, Barney's not there anymore. She's gone down the sinkhole. I think it was being led to make you think, well, he's decomposed or whatever, but down the sinkhole. Brilliant. Only in Coronation Street, eh? He's floating along in the sewer with all the other sewer rabbits down there.
I know that Corrie's kind of going into more of the drama and the hand-wringing side of Stephen's story and after his death because of Tim's flashbacks and Peter's culpability. But imagine if they leaned into the campiness just for the funeral, and we could have had a really funny scene with Billy maybe like talking about how does one mark the death of a man like Stephen Reed. It could have been so much fun. It could have been like what happened when poor old what's his face?
You're not thinking Lewis Archer.
Yeah. That was a farce, wasn't it?
That was a massive farce.
Like,
I still
Billy
think...
saying, like, he's achieved many things in his life, and then kind of looks, and Tim's there at the back folding his arms, and looks at Audrey, who's crying, going, some of them were
I still
really
think
great.
They could have lent into, a coffin in the back of a bin lorry or something. The hearse can't get out because Tim's blocked them in, but the only way we're going to get to the crematorium in time is if we chuck him in the back of this bin lorry and drive him down the road.
Well, imagine
Perfect.
I know that maybe they can only do this once every decade, who knows, because they did get a bin lorry when Spider was there when he first appeared. But what if Tim had just hijacked a bin lorry and fenced
They managed
in.
to get a volume wall twice in 1 year. I'm sure they could have done it with a bin lorry.
Or maybe they spent all their money on the volume wall. They don't have any bin lorry money left.
All right, let's continue with the Stephen story, but go on what's going on with Peter this week, the Peterminator, because despite what the police say, I still say that he definitely killed Stephen Reed in cold blood, and I won't hear otherwise.
I'm really surprised that this feels like it's finished before it started.
Yeah,
I was totally expecting
this to go in for the long
really
haul.
Protracted, extensive criminal case with culminating at the end of the year with a big trial and wigs and gowns and waiting rooms.
Just like,
sounds like what. I've looked at it really honestly, and I can't.
I've done an awful lot of work these past few months. I'm just waiting for Abney to tag me out. To be honest, let's just say you didn't do it.
Let's just say you didn't, and you keep your mouth shut, right?
And his lawyer. What happened to the lawyer that he borrowed last week? Toya's lawyer, the one that
Toya's
got her off murder as well.
Another one for me. I'm going to put this notch on my bedpost. 2. I've had 2 murderers.
If I murder somebody or accidentally bump someone off, I want that tattooed lawyer to be the one that represents me.
It's honestly a shame that Uncle Stephen never got the chance to meet her.
Yeah.
Because he would have been off scot-free.
Well, he did in a way, didn't serve any jail time,
he? Didn't get in trouble, really, did he? He just got bumped a little bit and then just popped his clogs.
So, Peter this week is talking with Daniel in the cafe. Carla's still in Spain because who knows what Ali Keating's doing at the moment. Peter's like, she'll be back soon, I'm sure. Surely she's going to be... Surely
she wouldn't leave me in my hour of need.
Surely. What is she up to? And Daniel says that I'll be there for you, Peter.
Daniel's like,
I'll
you know what? Daisy's
I'll
not
be a
around.
shoulder volunteer for you, Peter.
Daisy's not around as much as she used to be, and being a teacher, I've got a lot of spare time. So if you want me to just hang around and chit chat,
It's half term this week anyway. Does Daniel get half term?
do they
Is
have
it half term in the prison?
I don't
Do the
know.
prisoners get to
Do
like
they
go
let
into
them out?
holiday clubs and things?
Everyone's off to Butlins.
Anyway, so Audrey's at Rita's later.
And they're like,
still,
this is inhumane. Send us back to prison.
Audrey's still bemoaning her family's attitude towards the funeral, and Jenny and Rita try and make her feel better, but she's all tied up in knots about it, saying, "How did my son turn into the most evil killer?"
Not the most evil.
Who is the most evil killer in Coronation
I'd
Street
say it's
history?
Richard Hillman.
He just did it for his family, though.
He tried to kill them all at the end.
No, he did it for love.
No, I think that family
There was an attempt
annihilators.
to
Family
defend.
annihilators. I'd give him 2 thumbs down.
I think that Phelan, when he was at his worst, I'm gonna say he was the most evil one.
That's
out
a
of them
good
all.
question for another day.
Who was
The most evil character
who's-
on Coronation Street.
Yeah, okay, but yeah, not for
And
now.
why is it Tracy
Anyway,
Barker?
yeah, I was going to say, she should be out there, wouldn't she? Rita is there saying, look, Jenny, why don't you tell Audrey what Stephen said last week? Before he died, he had that secret special word with you. The bit about, what was it, Stephen saying, I'm not going to harm you, Jenny. And Jenny tells Audrey, who gets all huffy and says, oh, well, that's great to hear and everything, but now it turns out that Stephen definitely didn't need to kill him. What a thing that is. I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to go march over to wherever he is and have a go at him like that. He didn't even need to kill Stephen after all. So, Jenny and Audrey appear at Carla's flat later, and Audrey says to Stephen, why did you kill my son? And he says, well, Stephen was dangerous. Look what he's doing with Jenny. He was going to kill her. And Audrey makes Jenny tell him what Stephen said. And so then she says again, I'll ask you again, Peter, why did you kill my son? There was a bit of a...
There's been a lot of discussion about this. Is that what you're going to say?
There has been a lot of discussion about this, and I think we probably covered it in last week's podcast fairly well, but Peter could never have heard Stephen saying, I'm not going to kill you, Jenny. And I don't really get why so many of the arguments this week from Audrey, and I am on the Audrey side on this, I don't know why she was so determined that just because Stephen said that, Peter should have known about it. I'm going to say... and I still will say, the same as last week, the bottle dropping and the moving away from Jenny's far enough away from her so that she didn't get hit by the car is plenty enough evidence. But anyway, Audrey's found something else to latch onto this week, hasn't she?
I think it makes sense that Audrey, as a grieving mother, has latched onto this idea that he was unjustly killed because he said he wouldn't hurt her. But I definitely agree with people who are saying, well, it makes no odds what he privately said to Jenny because nobody could have known.
I was kind of expecting that secret conversation to be the bit of evidence that gets Peter sent down a little further down the line. Jenny's going to heroically get to the stand and say, well, he told me he wasn't going to kill me. And the judge says, throw him away. Take him away.
We definitely wrote a story that never was going to happen in our minds here.
Yeah.
It kind of...
nice to be surprised, I suppose.
It sort of reminds me of what happened with all the stuff with Seb and things about Kelly. And the rules are so weird in this country because I remember reading articles about somebody who was involved in a murder who literally said, boot him, or something like that. And I think that was one of the last people to be hanged in this country for murder because they encouraged it to happen. And there was another example of a couple who kind of encouraged a fight between two people, walked off, and then after they'd left, this person was murdered by the people they had encouraged, and they were just as culpable in the murder as the people that did the killing. So if you're going to say, oh, if you encourage somebody to kill somebody and they do it, then it's as good as you did it yourself. Then why can we not say, well, you killed somebody who had said something you couldn't possibly have known, but it indicated that was an unjust killing, therefore it is. Do you see does that make any sense?
Yeah, no.
I think the laws are so weird sometimes.
I don't know whether Coronation Street completely follows.
I don't think they care about that. But I am kind of surprised that, I mean, at the very least, this kind of feels a bit like it turns from, accidental to manslaughter.
Yeah. But you know, at the end of the episode, because Audrey huffs off and says, well, I'm going to go and tell the police, see what they have to say. Peter? And then when he's left alone with Daniel in the flat, Peter's like, well, yeah, I did want to kill Stephen, actually. I heard what he done to Kyla. He was dosing her up, and ever since then, I had an axe to grind against him, and when I saw the chance, I took it. So he literally admitted at the end of the episode, I did mean to kill him, whether I heard him say that he wasn't going to or not. He didn't. Which is good in a way, because I suppose we saying, oh, it feels like the story's all wrapped up already, but it's not, because even though by the end of this week Swain has said, Peter, you're off the hook, mate, he's not in his own mind. And Ken says as much, doesn't he?
This is the
Tracy
thing.
At the end.
It's not a story about, is Peter Barlow going to go down for murder? It's a story about, in his mind, how guilty does he feel, and how is that going to eat him alive? Because as much as Tim's now been affected mentally by what happened to him, then now Peter's going to be, and he's going to be thinking for the rest of his life, I killed someone, I shouldn't have done it. And the guilt there, that's horrific. And we know that he's got substance abuse issues. We know he's an alcoholic. I don't imagine Corey's going to go down that route again, because I think everybody would not tolerate. I don't
think we're ready for more.
And also,
we've
been told if he touches another drop, he'll die immediately.
Yeah.
And I assume that's going to be like some kind of big explosion, like when a vampire sees the sun. Just for soap purposes, just to make it really dramatic.
I wonder if they ever want to get rid of Peter Barlow, whether they would. I think I might quite like to watch that in some kind of sick way, a bit like how watching Katie Harris sugar herself to death at the end.
Would they do that now?
Yeah.
You know, I'm being flippant about him exploding. Of course, I know that people who are uncharitable will not care that I said that anyway. But the idea of him going back to alcohol after they've done a really good job of him battling that demon. I don't think they would go back to that. But he's obviously fragile. Yeah,
and I think that he might. Maybe he'll want to have a drink. I really don't think that they're gonna. They can't. They have literally said he will die.
They're not gonna kill off Peter.
So he might be tempted.
A tot of rum. Are they? I don't know.
Anyway, so Wednesday's episode, the Barlows are gathered around Peter's flat again, and he's obviously very worried about what Jenny said yesterday. He says, look, I killed a man and made a bad decision. I'll just go and hand myself in, shall I? So they put him off doing that, but it doesn't matter anyway, because Swain rocks up. Has she got a new friend? Was it this week or was he there last week? Another silent partner.
She's like, have you seen that show Silent Witness? We're trialing a new one. It's called Silent Partner. And this guy just follows me around everywhere. And it's kind of like Mulder and Scully, where there's real sexual tension. But he just doesn't say anything.
That's kind of the way that all police officers run in Weatherfield, though, isn't it? Whenever the two police officers come to investigate, there's always one that has to stay quiet.
He's like, They're just
listening and taking it all in.
And he's good cop, and he never speaks. And it's like a satirical comment upon the policing of this country.
Yeah, instead of good cop, bad cop in Weatherfield, they have mute cop, chatty cop. Who should you be? Do you want to be mute cop this week? Oh no, I was mute cop last week. Can I be chatty cop, please?
Hi everyone, it's me, chatty cop. So, what have you been up to today?
What have you been doing, mute cop?
God,
I nearly made you say something there, mute cop.
Have you been doing crimes again? You better not have done, Peter. Right, come down the station.
Is this like Alan Carr chatty man versus Alan Carr chatty cop?
I would like that. I think they should do that as a spin-off.
Anyway,
Alan Carr is chatty cop.
Swain takes Peter down the police station and says, we just heard that Stephen said that he wasn't going to kill her. Eh? You can lip read, can't you, Peter Barlow?
Adam's
she
there.
kind of insinuated. Adam's
brief.
there because her old tattooed brief can't be there. And Peter's like, well, no, I didn't know you said that. And so she's like, oh.
Hang on a minute, that's not what I heard. Right, come on, mute cop.
I thought that you'd read the script, Peter Barlow.
And mute cop, mute cop and Swain go outside, and mute cop's like, you said I couldn't say anything, but I knew that She's like, shut up! You're always making me look bad.
So she comes back later and is like,
Right, you be
I
quiet.
kind of had the whole case was hinged on this evidence, actually, that you actually did know that Stephen said that he wasn't going to kill Jenny.
Peter, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but are you sure that you didn't hear him say it? Because honestly, if you say you didn't hear him, then my whole case is shot.
It just collapses.
And Mute Cop's there going...
Nodding, yeah. So anyway, Peter's sent home with a slap on the wrist and says, well, don't run down anyone again, please. And so he does, and he goes back to number one.
I promise.
He's feeling a bit down because he's obviously punishing himself inside. Tracy can't believe he's not over the moon about it like she was.
When I got away with murder, I was thrilled.
Do you remember that time? Do you remember? Everyone was having a tram crash memorial. Do you remember? It was snowing and everything, and I came in and I said this brilliant line about being the best comeback in 2,000 years. Why aren't you like that, Peter?
It's like, I know it's not as good as Jesus, like when I came back, but do you not know any apostles or anything?
Yeah, Peter, you're named after one, aren't you? Anyway, he and Tracy get into a bit of an argy-bargy about this. Ken's there trying to mediate, but Tracy won't back down over the fact that he should be doing cartwheels down the cobbles. So he bogs off later, and
she's like, have you not got any like red halter necks or sexy outfits and big hoop earrings and
worked for
like
me.
Nice red lippy that you can stage a good comeback and cause hearts to flutter on the street and get yourself on the front of the soap mags?
He's like, I haven't got time for that, Tracy. I just want to go down to Rovers to have an orange. The Rovers is still closed, isn't it?
Where am I going to have my orange juice?
Where will I have my OJ now?
I have to get a Happy Meal and get one of those tiny little orange juices with my burger.
Anyway, he disappears off and he goes and has a lovely scene. And I will, again, credit where credit's due. There was a very nice scene between Peter and Toyah this week.
This was one of the best scenes of the week.
It really, really was. And I'm not just saying that because we're massive Toyah fans here on the podcast. No, it was lovely. And it felt like a kind of natural scene between people who used to be friends, lovers, if you will.
Yeah, lovers.
And this is the first time Toyah's done anything of note since being banged up in a wagon and had a gun pointed at her back in May or whenever it was. But she's just there and finds him.
So it's her best scene since she wet herself in the back of a van over the weekend. And we all done that this year.
And she just gives him a bit of a faux counselling session, doesn't she?
She's like, it's not official, I can't charge you.
She gives a bit of a smile with him, and they do make reference to the fact that, who'd have thought both of us getting away with murder,
I just love this, though, right, because she sits down next to him and he's got this cigarette. She's like, you don't want to do that. You want to vape, remember? You drink orange juice and you vape. You don't smoke and drink alcohol anymore. And then he's like, I killed Stephen. She's like, join the club.
She did say
she's like, welcome to the club. I think we should make badges. I think we should cook like the Weatherfield
Killers Club
and give them to all the cast members who have actually killed somebody, because there's a big list.
So it's growing fast in recent years. So that she acknowledges it, but doesn't make a big thing about it.
This
like
honestly
Tracy
feels
does,
like I really liked it. I thought it was well acted, but I just didn't. The way she said it was kind of like
She does kind of make a thing about sometimes I'm still asking myself, did I consciously drive into the wall?
Yeah,
was it
you
subconscious?
Did. You know you
she
did.
admitted to Leanne she did it on purpose,
Yeah.
and now she's backtracking.
Now she's like, I don't remember, honestly.
Is this the writers backtracking? And
I don't know.
Absolving Toyah of all guilt.
This feels like a retcon.
I kind of happily accept this retcon because it doesn't sit well with
mistake,
me that Toyah admitted to purposefully killing Imran because she got kind of mad about him lying. What was it that he'd done? He lied
shagged
in court.
about.
No, it wasn't even the shagging about. It was the lying about Abby in court. But anyway, it was a lovely scene, and the bit that I loved about it the most was how at the end she's like, he kind of talks to her about thanks to the free counselling session. She's like, you're cured. And it was just said in a really, really natural, kind of jokey, we're kind of friends sort of way.
Yeah.
I really loved the delivery of now
honestly,
you're cured, and it worked for him, and he made him feel happy. And happiness isn't something that many people were feeling this week in Coronation Street. There was a whole lot of drama and angst, and so for Toyah to come along like a little counselling fairy and wave a magic wand and Peter, I appreciated her for that.
Yeah, it was sweet.
Toyah.
It was well observed. It was nicely done. I think it just demonstrates that there should be a lot more Toyah in the show.
Yeah, and anyway, Peter goes back home and he tells everybody he's feeling pretty great. He says he's been to an AA meeting, but I don't know whether he was making that up.
He's like, I nearly made the worst mistake of my entire life. I know I killed a man and I nearly died of alcoholism, but I was about to smoke a cigarette in a playground. And,
Never anybody could have seen it.
And Toya stopped me.
Yeah.
So
anyway, Ken tells Tracy...
That would have been 3 for 3, wouldn't it?
Ken tells Tracy he doesn't believe that Peter's really okay, which is show code for saying this story isn't actually over. We're not going to throw him in prison, but he's going to have some mental anguish. But don't worry, he's not the sort to have flashbacks.
No, definitely not. I just like the way that Ken's like, I've been around the block a few times. I've had my fair share of birds and relationships and wives and whatnot. And I think... I finally got, I can't remember how old am I, 80, whatever?
84.
I'm 84 now, and I think when someone says they're okay, sometimes they're not. And Tracy's like, yeah, Dad, I could have told you that
Ken,
about 20 years ago.
You truly are the wise sage
Ken,
giver.
You're the smartest man in Weatherfield.
I know, says Ken. Thank you, I did pick up on that little bit of subtext there. You gotta go around the block a few times to be able to.
You really have to observe the very subtle
things.
Signs like the murdering and the near smoking to get that he's not actually okay.
So I'm kind of in a way looking forward to this because I do think that Chris Gascoigne is absolutely fantastic. I think he is so good.
What do you mean?
Peter's guilt. I think I'm kind of looking forward to that, even though it doesn't sound like, even though it's the sort of thing that I don't always enjoy, and I don't like people seeing people wallowing, but I really, really trust Chris so much to deliver this well. I almost don't even need Carla to come back for it, really. Just having him and his inner turmoil, I think he'll be able to portray really, really well. I'm very curious by the fact that Toya has kind of shown her face in this story, and I would also like to give myself a little bit of a pat on the back for last week putting out a tweet that suggested that Toya might be involved in this story. I wasn't even joking, and I think it was literally less than 24 hours later the previews for this week came out, probably I assume saying that this was going to happen, but I'm just going to say I thought of it first, all by myself.
You thought of it first, even though it was in a show that they wrote 6 months ago?
I just said, Toya and Peter, they used to get it on.
Yeah.
They both murdered.
A lot of the time when we predict things that are going to happen, it's not like because we're super smart and amazing. It's because it's the logical way for the story to go.
Sometimes when I make predictions, I don't actually think it's going to happen at all. I just think it's kind of funny to say maybe this will happen, and
sometimes it does.
And that was one of those things, but it actually did happen. So, I was.
Well done, Michael.
In the zone with Coronation Street scriptwriters there. But no, honestly, Toya's not done very much recently. What I really, really do not want and need to happen is for Toya and Peter have any reunion.
Well, that's not...
Absolutely doesn't need to happen. That was a disaster when they were together. They messed up the Rovers. They weren't a great couple.
Was that RBPs? I don't believe you saying any of this. Right.
I don't think that they're well matched.
Well done, Michael. You've just
bring back Imran.
You've just cursed it.
And I really don't need Peter sneaking her out behind Carla's back, bumping uglies with Toya. We've already got enough of that with Ryan and Daniel. Thank you very much. Sorry, Ryan and Daisy. Maybe that's just.
There's a lot of people that would really like that to happen. Shall I tell you what happened with Ed?
Yes, let's do the Ed story. God, this was a good one, wasn't it? So interesting.
Horse racing. Ed's doing it.
No, come on. You've got to make it sound interesting.
I am. Michael, excuse me. Let me do it how I want to do it.
Okay.
So he's going to go and get his money because he's won a horse race and he bumps into Ronnie on the way and he makes up an excuse. Then we get to see Michael with Dee Dee and Glory in the lounge and he's miserable about the fact he's been fired. And Dee Dee tells him to go back get his job back. But meanwhile, Ed comes back with a big bag of cash and... He realises that his 2 kids are there, so he hides it. And this is when Dee Dee pushes Michael out the door to go get his job back. So Michael goes and asks Sarah, please can I have my job back? And she says it's Carla's decision and she's in Spain. And everyone knows that you can't talk to anyone in Spain. And nobody in the factory trusts you anyway. And then Swain comes in and she wants to talk to Michael about what's happened with Stephen. And then later on we see Ed going back to get his money... which he stashed, and the bag he put it in is gone. So they had a nice little vestibule scene, didn't they? Yeah. We don't really see that little bit by the front door in number 3. The Bailey's vestibule.
Yeah.
So Michael's the one who's got this bag with the cash in it, and he's telling Swain he doesn't know anything about stealing anything. And Swain says, we need to take all your stuff, all your digital devices.
I think you need to slow down a little bit. I don't think you're hitting the main beats of this quite as obviously as maybe they need to be. So he opens his bag and there's a load of money in there. That's how you say it, Gemma. Have a go doing it. Just make a big announcement.
Opens his bag and there's money in it.
Oh my gosh, Michael's like, where on earth did this bundle of cash come from? I hear that this kind of thing happens in Weatherfield and people just find money underneath the carpet, or some rich relative that they hadn't thought of dies and it showers down coins upon them. But who'd have thought it would happen to me, Michael Bailey? And then Swain says,
where'd that come from? Ed comes out of the house and he sees Michael being driven off in a police car. And Kirk says, if you didn't watch it, he got caught with money in his bag.
So Swain thinks that he has been paid off by Stephen or something.
Ed's like, this is stupid. So Michael goes into the interview room and Joel, Dee Dee's boyfriend, is his brief. Because remember, he is one of these pro bono guys.
Solicitor.
And Michael's like, oh, get this over with. And Swain's asking him about the money. And he's like, I don't know where it came from. I don't know anything about Stephen. And Swain's telling him that they're opening up the investigation into Rufus's murder. And you got promoted the day after he was killed, right? This looks really suspicious. You guys were really close, weren't you?
Are they really reopening the case? I don't think they are. Because Stephen did tell Jenny, he confessed to her that he killed Rufus, didn't he? He said, with my bare hands. So I don't know whether
How much do they really... This is the thing, like when somebody who's a killer dies, how much do they really care? What's the point of investigating when you can
just because someone confessed to something, it doesn't mean they actually did it. But it seemed odd
I know.
to me
I'm
that...
only being philosophical. I'm not like pretending it's a hypothetical question. Like, how much do you really need to spend time? It's not like every single other case is solved. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right, so Ed and Ronnie are in the waiting room in the police station, and Ronnie's saying, oh, this money must just be the cash we gave him the other day. And Swain
he
says...
He thinks it's £2,000.
And Swain's there. This is Ronnie's telling her this. And Swain says, oh, well, show me the documents, and if you can prove you gave him this money, then it'll all be sorted out.
Yeah, but
what is it?
It's £6,000. So he thinks it is £2,000, didn't he?
Ronnie thinks it's $2,000.
Yeah.
Ed only gave him £1,000 and took it back.
Yeah.
But this money that's in there is the £6,000 that Ed has won from gambling.
Yes. So Ronnie's like,
it's not as complicated as you're making it sound.
Okay, sorry.
So Ed and Ronnie have it out outside because he's realised what's actually happened here. And because Swain's told him it's $6,000, it's not $2,000.
Yeah, he
and
knows
he says
that.
Ed, what the hell is going on? You're an addict. You can't be trusted. What have you done?
You did
and
a bit gambling.
Ed's saying, "Oh no, it was only one bet. It'll never happen again." And Joel's listening in on this, and Joel asks Ed, "So this money here, that you won this gambling, do you have the betting slips? And if you do, I'll just give them to Swain, and then this will all be finished." And Ed is pleased that this can just be sort of brushed under the carpet, but he's also not very happy about the idea that Michael's going to find out that he's been gambling again. Because remember this speech that Michael gave about how he and Aggie spend all their spare time working so they can save enough money to stop Ed from tipping the family into disrepute again. I
kind of feel a bit bad for Swain this week because she thought that there's two cases where she's like, I'm gonna get a real great result here, and then just like, oh, drop that then.
Wow.
If anything, the fact that she ended up dropping this Michael case should have made her double down more on the Peter killed Stephen thing. Because she's just ended the week feeling like, might as well not gone to work this week.
You could have gone to Malaga.
Could have gone to join Carla in Spain. So,
Michael's been let out and he doesn't know why. And Ed says, oh, I just put this money in your bag because I wanted to surprise you. And we took it out of our business account. You take it. And Michael says, okay, I guess I do need £6,000. What's he need $6,000 for? Thank you for helping me. And Ron, what's he need $6,000 for?
For his kid, for glory.
For glory to
She was in
what?
it this week. He's got to pay her appearance fee.
oh, thanks, Dad. I guess I can give you the £6,000 I owe you in back rent.
Yeah.
So Ronnie makes it clear that he's not happy for this to carry on, but bad news for him.
Stop gambling, bruv, says Ronnie.
On Tuesday, Ed's excited about this potential investor that's going to meet them tomorrow, and Ronnie and Debbie are having a celebratory clinch, and hooray, everything's going really well, and they go to the cafe later, and Ed's trying to avoid talking to Ronnie about, you said it's boring, so I don't really know what that was about.
Oh yeah, he had boring talks about owing money to people. I don't really know. Presumably not important.
Ed and Ronnie, I think, talk, and he says he won the money, and Ed's saying no, I didn't, and Ronnie gets out of him that he definitely did, and then Ed's saying, oh, you're just trying to make trouble between me and Aggie, and Ed says, you started me gambling because you made me do this shares thing, and shares are just gambling for rich people with the Newton and Ridley stuff. And Ronnie's like, oh no, maybe it wasn't me. And Ed finally now admits that he did win the money, but he swears he's going to stop doing it now. Everything's under control. And Ronnie says to him, what happens when you need that buzz again? I'm not going to let you ruin everything. So they then head back to number 3, and Ronnie's telling Ed that he needs to know the truth about the gambling, and the family needs to know. And Ed says, well, you're not whiter than white, are you? I'm going to tell everybody about your insider trading and all the blackmail. So then they just have a standoff, don't they?
Yeah, and at this point I was thinking, oh, are people going to get blackmailed again? Well, this really seems to be the go-to drama and cliffhanger and kind of conflict between characters at the moment. We've already got blackmail going on with old Lauren and Ryan, haven't we? And now Ed's going to blackmail Ronnie.
I know, but the thing is, okay, right, I can totally see what you're saying, and I agree with you to a certain extent, but this is the same as people, happening to overhear something. Like, the mutually assured destruction of some of these storylines is really the only way to keep them going, because in real life you'd be like, I'm just going to tell everybody. But it is kind of
everyone's got to have something on someone else.
So Joel, everyone has dinner at the Bistro, and Ed is Ed's like, just to remind you, even though we already had a scene about it, I'm not going to gamble anymore. And then Dee Dee tells Joel about Ed's gambling problem for some reason, and tells her it's
their soulmates.
It's in the past, and Joel looks really awkward about this because he knows that Ed's been gambling recently, because he's had to use this as evidence to get his client off of being in trouble with the police. And they decide to play dominoes.
Thrilling stuff.
Joel's left alone with Ed later, and he says, look, I know about the gambling problem. I feel bad about keeping this quiet to Dee Dee, even though I said I would keep my mouth shut. And Ed says, look, you just need to keep your mouth shut. Everything's fine now, as long as you don't take this any further. So on Wednesday, Ronnie and Ed are supposed to have this meeting with the investor, and it starts in the Bistro, and this guy's very impressed by Ronnie's patter, and Ed's not very happy about the fact that Ronnie's taking control, and he's done all this, he's got spreadsheets and folders and paperwork, and he hasn't consulted Ed once. And then they kind of have a conflict that's kind of like along the lines of Rest Easy versus Shuttleworth, where Ronnie's like, it's going to be done cheap, and Ed's like, we're not going to skimp on quality. And they both agree they're going to do it like as well as possible, but they also can't agree on whether it's going to be cheap or what, where the priority is. So the guy's like, I don't care about it as long as you do it for this amount of money, and fine. And they all shake hands, and then Ed goes off to the hotel. Ronnie goes off to the hotel to meet Debbie, and Ed is left alone, and he calls a cab and he goes to a casino.
He didn't get there, does he? Somebody stops him.
And he gets a few wise words of wisdom from Peter. He's like, don't do it, mate. Just a few hours ago I was sitting in a playground about to smoke cigarettes within sight of children, and a fairy came from heaven and told me to just
butt my ideas up.
She's like, Nike, don't do it. Whenever you think of doing something, don't do it. And that's what I live my life by now. Like, when I saw Stephen, I should have thought that, don't do it. But I did it. And now look at me. So,
I think Toya's like that whenever she looks at a sausage.
Don't do it. I could have eaten it, but I didn't. Don't do it.
Whenever she looks at a meat lasagna. So he doesn't do it.
So he doesn't do it.
He goes back home.
He said, if I have a choice of doing it or not doing it, I always say don't do it.
Yeah. I don't know what it is particularly about this story that's not grabbing me. Is it the characters? Is it the fact that it's all about money and deals and stuff, which I've never historically
super
found
uninteresting
interesting
to me? But
oh, isn't it? Oh, I'm glad.
No, I mean, I don't trust Joel.
I don't trust Joel, but I don't know whether I should be not trusting Joel or whether, like, you know, he's so incredibly bland and nice. Is that giving me warning signs like, oh, there's got to be something?
He's not real.
There's got to be something wrong with him. But it feels at the moment that the story doesn't need a Joel in it. We don't need to add extra characters. I'm not sure what the point of him is, but maybe, I mean, he's got to be up to no good. Otherwise, he is kind of pointless. I guess he's maybe going to blackmail Ed or something.
He's just really boring.
Yeah.
And handsome.
I like, in a way, that they're doing a gambling story with Ed, because it's been, you know, over the years, it's been teased that he has had gambling troubles in the past, but they've not really done a story with it, and now they have. But I don't really find business and financial stories that exciting. And I like Ed and I like Dee Dee. Not too fussed on Ronnie.
How much can you sympathise with substance abuse storylines, like the drug stuff with Cassie and Peter's alcoholism? Yeah, you personally.
What, as somebody who is very boring,
certainly not
has no vices whatsoever.
Because I'm just thinking, like, I can sympathise with the drugs and alcohol stuff, but when it comes to the gambling, I'm not saying that I don't think it obviously is a problem.
Not a real addiction.
Obviously know that it is, but I just cannot I don't get it.
Maybe I get it more.
That's interesting. Because you won't stop playing your game sometimes and you should really go to bed.
Yeah, and I won't stop watching Coronation Street sometimes. See, it's not a chemical thing.
It is the difference between behavioural and, like you say, chemical. Like, but obviously they overlap, because the gambling releases chemicals in your brain, and the substance stuff is, you know, at this time of night I start drinking or whatever. I just watch it and I think, just don't do it anymore. But I think it's partly because we haven't really seen much of Ed. Like, why is Ed doing it? He hasn't got a confidant. I've said this before. This is one of the big drawbacks of Corrie. It's silly because they've got such a massive cast, but nobody talks to each other about their problems. So he can only sort of...
This is one of those secret problems that you harbour to yourself, isn't it? Because it's so shameful.
Yeah, I know. But
he hasn't got a mate, has he?
He doesn't go... He wins and he doesn't win, and so far he has just won quite a lot. So I'm kind of on the side of, like, yeah, keep gambling, because you seem like you're quite lucky. But that's obviously not what Corrie wants me to think.
Well, he needs to have a word with Steve McDonald, because back in the day, back in the late 90s, Stephen had a similarly lucky streak on the GGs, and that all came crashing down on him. So
it will. I'm sure it will do with Ed, but at the moment his biggest issue seems to not be the gambling so much as the fact that he's gambling and his family doesn't want him to.
Yeah, which makes sense considering
the
history. It's the thing.
Do you see what I mean? I'm missing the emotional connection between me empathising with Ed and...
It's feeling too plot heavy rather than character heavy, this one, which is a common thing to say about soaps, but for this it's really feeling like this is the plot, where he goes back to gambling, rather than this is something that's coming naturally out of characters' motivations and relationships, which I would have probably preferred.
It's such a shame, because if he was... The trouble with this storyline is, if he stopped now, it would all be really great and a positive advert for gambling, because he got all the money that he needed. He's gambled twice.
Whenever I want.
He's gambled twice. He got the $6,000. And he also gambled before then, when he was missing all the money out of the account.
Yeah.
So it's all just peaches and cream at the moment.
I guess it feels... I think Joel is a bit of the wild card with this at the moment, but it's clearly going to go wrong for Ed, and he's clearly going to have a big loss. And clearly, he's going to spiral downwards.
I'm going to say to you as well, it's not just a soap thing that gambling's bad for you. It's incredibly damaging, but at the moment, does it feel like it's a really good representation of a gambling problem. I guess you need to give it more time. That's the thing. You need to give it a lot more time than this. Because I don't think anyone would get hooked on it if it wasn't a slow descent into spiraling out of control. Like, everyone has really great moments when they gamble. But just as me, somebody who, like, you know, I play the lottery, I bet on the horses sometimes, but it's never been an issue, and I can't imagine it ever being an issue. And I'm somebody who's got really addictive personality, so
tell you what I'd like to see in this
I can't relate.
story.
I need a hook. I really hope that Corrie can get a hook.
I would like to see an actual scene in a betting shop, because they
they
had Barlow's bookies and Sean Skinner's bookies for ages before then. So when they had characters that were going there, you kind of did get caught up in the excitement. You saw it on the screen and everyone else was there. But this, the most that we're getting is Ed in a room on his own, looking at a TV that we're not seeing what's on the screen. He's just going, come on, my lovely, come on, you get past the post. Or listening to it on his phone. And it's not got the atmosphere of, exciting and betting shop.
This is the thing, see? When they had the betting shop, it probably was easier because they didn't have to ask anyone permission. There's no gambling shop that's going to go, oh, you want to do an issues-based storyline about the problems of gambling? Yeah, sure, come and film it in my... So. And you're not going to be able to get permission to film at a horse race or at the dogs or anything, or a casino, because it's like, this is a really bad advert for my business. I don't really want you to do that.
Yeah. Oh well.
But I would. You're right. The atmosphere and stuff, and it would make you realise, you know, Ed's here and he's caught up in everything. And
I wonder whether Peter and Ed will touch base more on this, considering that Peter used to be a bookies and he will have seen gambling addictions for, over horses in the past, and the fact that they were crossing paths at the end of yesterday's episode was a bit of a...
Yeah, but Peter didn't get out of the gambling game because he felt sympathy for addicts.
No,
it's
I know.
It's the same
but
thing as expecting Jenny to feel like, I just think it's a big can of worms to have. For example, Jenny having a conversation with Peter about alcoholism.
I just think maybe
how
it's something that...
How responsible is Jenny or Peter for people that have an issue with controlling their intake of either of the substances that they provide? You start down a very confusing... I think it's confusing because I feel as though I could live 1,000 lives and never become a gambling addict. But I feel like in about 50% of my life, I'm polyamorous alcoholic.
She says, whilst holding a bottle of cider in her hand.
Now. But it's, you see what I mean? Yeah. How responsible are you? And I don't really think that that's what the conversation's about. It's not about, should we stop providing this? Should everybody not be allowed to do it in case X number of people out of 100 have an issue with it? But the results of when it goes wrong is devastating. We've already seen what happened to the Baileys, even though I didn't really buy that sub-story with Michael saying how he and Aggie work every hour of the day because they're terrified of a relapse. I thought that rang really hollow, but it was obviously Corrie thought it was a really important scene to get in there so that we can see where Ed's going to take this problem.
And it is a shame that we haven't got Aggie in this story, that she's off with Auntie Corona again, because I think that could certainly lend a little bit of heart to it, but obviously there's reasons that she's not in it.
Well, I want to know how are we going to get the thrill that Ed's finding from his gambling in whatever city, like, where are they going to go with it now?
I think it can't be long before he has his big fall.
And why...
And Joel's going to know.
Why is Ronnie... why would you ever listen to someone who would say, oh no, it's under control? You would just immediately say, you can't trust yourself, and me enabling you to be tempted here is a bad move on my part. I'm not saying anyone's to blame for someone's addictions, but equally, if you know someone who's a gambler, you don't give them a credit card, and if you know someone who's an alcoholic, you don't make them landlords of the Rovers, for example.
Yeah, Peter. Right, let's move on to Ryan. Oh my gosh, Lauren this week. So we still don't know, and you know, a whole week's gone past. We don't know who this person is that's trying to get money out of Lauren, do we?
Well,
there's only so long that I can be kept on tenterhooks about this.
This is what's happened. This is what happened with Shona's storyline. When she first came in, we knew that she had a secret link to David, and it took so long for them to tell us what it was that by the time it came out, everyone had guessed about 1 million different permutations of how the story could have gone, and one of them included the fact that it was Clayton who'd killed Kylie. So if they leave this too long, we're going to guess what it is that Lauren's up to.
They do need to say. But anyway, whatever it is, she's feeling pretty scared of them on Monday's episode. Ryan comes in.
Do you think it's protection money for somebody to not beat up her dad in prison?
It could be. That's a good one. I hadn't thought about that. Nice, I like it.
Well, she sounds scared of whoever it is, right?
That would be perfect for making her likeable, I suppose, in a way.
Or
we did say that it's something.
It's going to be
good.
something that reflects well on her character, because
I like
Coronation
that.
Street
like
really
theory.
wants Lauren to be beloved.
They do, but they're really doing a bad job about it. They're really making us not like her whatsoever.
Well, I don't know how much of this is just us being cynical.
I don't know. But anyway, she tries to act all nice to Ryan when he comes in, but he's like, sorry, I've not forgiven you over the whole I'm going to blackmail you thing. I'm not your friend. This isn't a game. You're messing with my life. Leave me alone, Lauren. And we see a scene of her taking Freddie for a walk just to prove that she is lovely, really.
She doesn't kick dogs in the kidneys.
Yes. So then we have
it's a bit of a low bar.
Daisy coming into the cafe, and she has a go at Lauren because she's been a little get to Ryan about the blackmail and everything, and she says, look, Daisy says, I'm not going to be blackmailed by a worthless, snotty-nosed brat. Good for you. She goes home and finds Daniel talking to Lauren because that worthless, snotty-nosed brat has decided that she's going to be a little bit sneaky and ask Daniel to tutor her so she can do her GCSE English. Clearly she knows what she's doing here, just stirring the pot. So again, why should we like her? I don't know. Daisy's not impressed with this move, and neither am I. Daniel and Lauren have their first session. He sees her off, and as she leaves, she makes some snarky remark to Daisy about Daniel being all such a diamond. Obviously, she knows that Daisy has not been completely faithful to him. So she goes, and Daisy says, look, Daniel, why are you tutoring her for? She's a proper scally. She used to be racist. She possibly still is. And he says, oh no, she's trying to turn her life around. She's a real Greckie Granger type character. I'm going to do it. I'm going to tutor her because I've got so much spare time in my job because I'm just a teacher. Of course I can fit Lauren in. Why not? So Daisy storms into the bistro where she's working, remember, and she tells Ryan what's been going on, and she's worried that Lauren's going to be draining him dry for more money soon. End of the day, Ryan gets back to the flat, says, Lauren, stay away from me. I can't believe you're pulling this new stunt with Daniel. She says, I know, I really do want my GCSE. But anyway, what you and Daisy are doing is wrong. And then she starts blubbering around about saying, I haven't got any family, I haven't got any mates. Oh, I'm so desperate. And I didn't care what, I didn't shed any tears for her, Laura. And I tell you what, she says, I don't want to blackmail you, but I don't want you to leave either. I'm just really scared of everything. Oh, my life's so tragic. Oh, my potential homelessness, so tragic too. Oh, I'm only 17. Sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier when I said I was 20. And he does sympathise a little bit because, you know, Ryan's a nicer guy than me. But she says, oh, just leave it. I don't need your sympathy. God, I found this really difficult. I didn't enjoy this, but Tuesday, somebody has a stare at Ryan's scar in the bistro, which obviously gets Daisy's hackles right up. And I think I'm feeling the same as you were when you were recounting the Tim storyline earlier with us. Ryan says, oh, don't worry about it. And the guy who stared at him says, oh, I'm so sorry. And he doesn't stay for long. But anyway, that's enough to get Daisy and Ryan all mooning over each other with the rest of the episode. They kind of go into the kitchen and they're getting all close to each other. And then the chef comes in. Silent chef walks into the room. And the moment's gone.
And it's just like, I think I've just disturbed something.
This is the kind of look that I used to get from Ryan, from what's his name, Robert and Michelle, when they used to emerge from the freezer together. Have I walked in on something here? I don't know.
He says to himself, I know I should have listened to my brother when he said I should have got a job at Weatherfield Police Station.
There are plenty of silent job offers in the paper, and I had to go for this one.
Why did I get the silent
Bistro
chef job instead of silent policeman
job? Anyway, Ryan gets chatting to Debbie later, who soon twigs what's going on, because he said, there's this girl that I like, and I think she likes me, but she won't leave her boyfriend. Oh, what shall I do? Debbie's like, just find someone else. There's plenty of other people out there who'd snap you up. Don't go there. It's too much drama. And she before the episode has ended, has twigged that Daisy is the object of his affections. And Ryan says, I love her, and I think she loves me as well. And Daisy's like, why is she with somebody else then, you pillock? Debbie says this. Wednesday is all about Sinead. 4 years. 4 years, Gemma, since she stopped watching Coronation Street every time Sinead's started coming on the screen looking a bit sickly.
It's another year before I'll mention her in my quiz.
It is, yeah. Kate McGlynn was all
dead.
Kate McGlynn was all over social media last night saying, thanks, Corrie, I can't believe it's been 4 years.
Can I come back?
Can I come? Yeah.
We'll talk about that. We've got a Patreon episode coming out soon about people that should come back from the dead. Yeah. And maybe one of us has picked Sinead returning from the grave.
I don't know. We have not recorded it. Have you picked Sinead? Well, don't tell me now.
I won't tell you.
Anyway,
I haven't picked Sinead.
Toya is not just sitting on a bench talking to Peter, lending a sympathetic ear this week. She also has a bit of a go to Daisy, her new colleague at the Bistro, and says, I can tell they're saying up with you, Daisy. What is it? Daisy talks about Sinead's anniversary going on, and Daniel's...
Well, she feels guilty because she's having an affair, and that she thinks that
she's being a terrible
Daniel
girlfriend.
Deserves a better girlfriend than she is.
Yeah, somebody like dead Sinead, and Toya's like, don't worry about it, love.
She's like, why would...
You're great.
Daisy, why would Daniel want to be married to a corpse still? That doesn't make any sense.
Daniel gets an idea in his head later that he wants to finally sell his mum's home that's been just waiting to be sold. He's kicking out the refugees.
He's like, no one cares about that anymore. Everyone's talking about a completely different conflict.
Yeah.
And I haven't decided which one I'm going to go for, so I'm going to sell the house.
Yeah. And maybe we could get Elaine's flat in Red Bank. And she's a bit non-committal about this because obviously she's not sure that their relationship's going to last long enough to sign the contracts on that. So she gets talking to him about it later, and she says, I haven't got a job at the moment. Decision. It's not a proper one anyway. It's a big decision buying a flat. I don't think we're ready for it. I don't want to commit to it.
They're already living in a flat.
Yeah, so he says, look, why don't I just sell the house anyway? Then we get a bit of cash going.
Good idea,
so when we do want to buy somewhere, we've got the money there. And maybe in the meantime, we can go and have a bit of a snoop around people's houses, and maybe that'll give us some ideas
for what we want. I mean, honestly, sell the house now.
Is now the right time?
I can't.
Is that a seller's?
Do you not think that the housing market is famously about to not be quite as...
Maybe that's what he's got in his head. Don't know.
I don't think Daniel has any sense in his head, I'm sorry.
He's very intelligent. He's the second most intelligent person on the street, only after his dad, actually.
Well,
but he isn't noticing the subtle hints that are being wafted around him like Ken is. He hasn't spotted that Daisy is somewhat distracted and maybe wanting to spend a bit more time with Ryan than she normally would be. I
just love the way that Coronation Street is so scared of middle class people that they're not even making Daniel, who is literally a landlord, and there are so many characters on the street who are also landlords, into somebody who's actually benefiting at all from the fact that he owns a property that he's renting out to somebody by having refugees in there. But they're also not going to address the fact he's kicking them out.
I know. How are you finding this story, Gemma? You gripped by it?
I still don't really think I'm ever going to love Lauren the way they want me to, but I'm open to it happening. She just needs to be a bit more... She's a bit complicated, kind of which is weird because, if you think about Becky and Kylie and all the rest of the sort of the naughty ladies that we all love, she's not worse than them, is she? She's not a terrible... She hasn't actually done anything wrong.
She doesn't have the fire in her.
She doesn't
have the bolsh.
That's true. I've complained before about how she's very apathetic, isn't she?
Yeah, she's just a bit of a mizzy.
Her trying to get money, her trying to blackmail Daisy and Ryan was actually the most go-get-em she's ever been. And it certainly wasn't for any good reason, you know, like a good character, you know, we're going to love this character because she's doing this reason.
They've really got to do.
Walking a dog does not make me like you.
Yeah, everybody loves dogs. Look, this person's taking Freddie for a walk.
Show me picking up poo when nobody's watching, and then maybe I'll think she's a good person. But I bet you she keeps going and hopes that nobody saw Freddie do.
As for the whole Daisy and Ryan thing, I just hate it because it's just going so inevitably between them giving in to their carnal desires and bonking in the freezer or on the bench or somewhere in the bistro, aren't they? And I hate it. I really hate it. And I also don't like how they're making Daniel
an oblivious fool.
Well, they're also just being a bit distant, and like she offered to go to see Sinead's grave, and he's like, no, I'll go by myself. So it's giving her reason, supposedly, we're supposed to think, it's always giving her permission to go. I bet Ryan would invite her. He'd lay out the red carpet for Daisy to go to Sinead's grave if that's where he was going, but not Daniel. I just get on with it, Coronation Street. I hate it. And now that Debbie knows, what difference is that going to make? I don't know. But nice to see Debbie doing something at least. Let's move on. I just can't believe how the story that started so well with the stalking at the beginning of the year, that was brilliant. The acid attack, amazing. It's just gone to this. Ugh.
Court skiving. Everyone loves
Courtney and Ardy.
Courtney.
Such a firecracker, that Courtney, isn't she? Honestly.
Do you know what I'm going to say? I would rather see Courtney have a character rehabilitation than Lauren.
Well, yeah,
I just think Courtney's got more about her. And it's no reflection on the actresses, because they've just written Courtney as a more interesting character than Lauren.
She has got a bit more spark to her.
Courtney stands up for herself. That's all I want of Lauren. I want her to stand up for herself, and I want her to be her own best friend.
And maybe crack a smile.
Courtney is like her most beloved fan, which I think good for Courtney. So on Tuesday, Ardy and Asher are talking, because he's still mad at Dev, but he agrees to go to dinner with Asher, and over dinner Asher can tell that he's not really happy about this flat that he's in with Courtney, and he says, yeah, it's a bit of a dump, and I feel like Courtney deserves better and I should provide it. So Asher says, I think I can help you. So she goes around later and she helps him to redecorate it, and Courtney comes in and she's like, oh, that's fantastic, innit? And she sees the paint. She's like, oh, amazing, how'd you pick this colour?
It's half off.
It was white.
Was it white?
I don't think it was white.
I think it was kind of
a bit of a
cornflower
tinge.
blue to it.
Oh God, do you remember the amount of times we used to sit there with all the patches of different colours, and they were all like, this is off yellow, this is off white, but this is off pink. What specific shade of that would you prefer? Anyway, so they paint.
She makes her excuses as to why she doesn't want to help out.
She's sick or something. Yeah, she insults the paint colour and goes to bed, basically. And Asher is not at all impressed with this and tells Ardy that he needs to take her to task for being a scrounger. And you know, this is the bit that boggles my mind about Courtney, because we got this spiel about how she was actually quite super smart, and she had her MBA on business or whatever, and it was her horrible husband that prevented her from working. I don't buy it for a minute. She's just a lazy.
She really is just really vacuous.
If only I had the looks, I'd be 100% on Courtney in Courtney's team. Just grift your whole life and be beautiful and go shopping and get a boy to drive you around. This sounds perfect. But sadly, I don't have the looks. On Wednesday, Ardy's all dressed up. He's going to go for an interview. He wants to work at Fresh Goes.
Oh, yeah, I think he told Asher about that on Tuesday's episode, but I didn't write it down.
Maybe you'd want to go for a job there as well. We should get both. Oh no, he tells Courtney this, surely. And Courtney's like, no, I don't want a job. But she gets changed and dressed up, and then she starts saying that she's feeling sick.
Yeah, he cajoles her into it.
And he goes off to Fresh Goes while she's thrown up in the toilet. And but later on, Asher and Nina are walking around, and they see Courtney, and she's gone shopping. So when Ardy joins Nina and Asher in the bistro and tells him that she's worried because Courtney was supposed to be coming with him to a job interview, but she was sick, and he knows that he's in a soap, so he suspects she's pregnant.
Someone's sick in the
morning.
Which
a character normally wouldn't do, but this time he does. And they say, well, she looked pretty fine earlier because she was out shopping. And Ardy's very surprised to hear this, so he returns home and confronts Courtney about this and tells her that he was worried that she was pregnant. And she's got this cock and bull story about she was insecure about going to this job interview when she doesn't have good enough clothes, and so she had to go shopping for a new wardrobe. And he's like, oh yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, go on then. I suppose so.
So
you don't have that many clothes.
Why isn't she brought her wardrobe with her? Does she not have any clothes from when she was getting a job being his PA?
Does. I think she does.
Darren, is it Darren?
Yeah.
Well, obviously she's lying. Do you think she's pregnant?
No. She said that she wasn't pregnant. She's not pregnant. Really hope that she's not going to be pregnant.
I think she might be pregnant, but it's Darren's baby.
Oh, really? That's a good one.
Yeah. Well, it's just the only thing that makes sense, because if it's Ardy's baby, they've turned this, what they called a steamy summer sex story, into 18 years of relentless drudgery as Courtney and Ardy discuss who's going to babysit darling little, I don't know, Mercedes.
It's certainly not steamy or sexy, is it? It might have been
not at the moment.
A little bit, but
not when you've moved into a flat that's covered in grime and has got a pulley system to get somebody in and out of bed who's died in the house.
That sexy sex swing, wasn't it, that she thought it was?
Yeah, no, that's not sexy.
No, Ardy has kind of just got himself into a hole here, and I think he realises that...
I don't think he has. He's not realised yet.
I think it is slowly twigging on him, but then any excuse that he's getting to go, oh no, like with the whole clothes thing, when she came up with the excuse, I think he'd been thinking, oh, what have I got myself into here? Oh, right, okay. And then he jumps on the chance, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't want to lose face here. He's got in much deeper than he was... Yeah, he's got into something, and it's not all sweetness and roses like he thought it was, but equally he doesn't want to go crawling back to Dev and admit to him, you were right all along about her.
Yeah.
But I can't see it lasting for that much longer.
It's got to end soon, surely. I mean, we were told it was a summer story, and it's October and we're all cold.
Yeah. Amy's not been in it this week, but earlier on this year, you know, when Ardy and Courtney started going out, they were making noise about those two kind of being a couple, weren't they? And he ended up dumping Amy so that he could go out with Courtney instead. So it's probably only a matter of time until something happens there. I hope so. I don't need Courtney to be in it much longer. But speaking of couples, I did enjoy seeing a bit more of Nina and Asher.
Very sweet.
A rare scene of them walking down the street with a Hayes Travel in the background, or at least...
looks like it.
It seems like... Well, I can't remember whether we've even mentioned this. We've known about it for ages. I think it was revealed in the news for a while, and there's obviously been pictures that have come out of the Coronation Street experience for the last couple of months saying Hayes is the business that's Which one's it taking over?
EE.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's taking over the EE shop, so suddenly everyone's going to lose their routers from their homes and decide that they want to go off on holidays. So there's going to be holiday brochures over everyone's flats now instead of flashing routers.
It's a really interesting business to put in there, because EE had the present... I know this is completely aside to everything we're talking about, and we do not know anything about the sponsorship. Just to be clear, we have got no information about this. Please don't
Hayes
take
insider
anything
info
that we're saying as anything. But the EE stuff, you had people with their routers in their house for the broadband, and you had the shop presence, obviously. Sometimes somebody would have a bag with EE on it, and also I think sometimes maybe the when you looked at a phone, it might be that the provider
carrier was EE. Possibly.
I don't remember that.
They did that.
With Costa, obviously you got to see them carrying cups about, but with Hayes, it just feels like it's going to be a really difficult thing to incorporate beyond having it in the background, which makes me wonder...
is it a cheaper one?
Is it cheaper? Did some of the other possibilities say, no, we don't want sponsorship because we don't feel like you get enough screen time for what you pay? Or are they going to write in some kind of plot with Hayes where...
No.
Yeah, I know, but you say no. But I say, remember that stupid Purple Bricks story that they put in, which was just literally based on Purple Bricks paying their money to have... And it feels to me like it influenced an actual story.
They had, yeah, maybe.
Because that was when they sold,
like
just
shops.
to remind everybody, Purple Bricks, if you're not from the UK, Purple Bricks is a estate agent, a realtor,
online.
and they sold or tried to sell the Rovers at one point.
Yeah. No, they've been clear that they're not going to have stories set in those shops, but they do mention them.
In the past they have. I don't know whether they're going to have a different deal with every company.
I don't know.
No, I know. I don't know
I
either.
think maybe just the possibly characters will be reading travel brochures instead of chit chat for a while.
Yeah, that's a good point. You can have a brochure on the the table.
The travel agent isn't really a shop that you go very often, because even
Not
this
these
week
days.
somebody said, "Oh, I'm just going down the Co-op." They like to name drop it, don't they? And they like to have the Argos fan going past. People don't just say, "Oh, you know what? I'm just going to have a browse through the travel agent magazines," do they? Or maybe they will. I don't know. But anyway, I would be more interested in Hayes Travel if it was actually run by Jacob and Damon Hay. And they popped up for the opening. And they were there going, "Hey, it's us. It's an evil travel agent. With us, the Hayes were back." But Jacob's not evil. He's lovely. Hope and Glory. Sorry, Gory. At last.
You did it.
One day's worth of this, but surely this was the sweetest thing that happened all week. Basically, Sam wants them to be doing a Halloween do at the Bistro next week. Halloween is Tuesday next week, isn't it?
Yeah.
Typical that there's not actually going to be a Tuesday episode, as far as I know. I think the Rugby World Cup.
I think most people are going to be having their parties this weekend in real life.
And Nick and Leanne aren't too sure, because do you remember what happened to Sam's mum Natasha? Well, she only got shot in a Halloween costume. It wasn't at Halloween, I'm going to say. It was 2 weeks before Halloween that she got shot. So really, I don't know why you would be worried about the actual day himself. But anyway, they're worried that Sam's going to have traumatic flashbacks. And he's like, "No, I'm more mature than any of these guys.
Yep.
I just deal with things. I'm not like Tim, who whinges on about it. And I'm not like...
flashbacks.
Don't have flashbacks about it. I'm not like Peter Barlow, who reaches for the bottle. It's fine. I'm over it. Mum and me used to love Halloween before she got gunned down by Harvey Gaskell. So I'm cool. Let's have a Halloween party." And Leanne's like, go on then. I'm the life and soul of the party. Why not? So, later still, Sam comes up to her and he's like, "Leanne, I want to book a table for two at the Bistro, please. I'm going to try on with Hope again." I can't remember what happened between him and Hope earlier this year, but whatever it was, it put the kibosh on their blossoming puppy love romance. But he's up for another shot at it, so he goes to see Hope in the cafe, buys her a strawberry milkshake, and the rest is history. They're back together again, and they have a lovely little scene where they hold hands, and Corrie knew exactly what they were doing.
They know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing. They can melt our hearts with these two. It's
so
like,
easy.
It really, really is.
You don't have to say, do you?
I'd like to talk to Jude or Bella about this and go, do you do it? And you go, I got to touch a boy.
Boy.
I don't know why you making me do this, Coronation Street. Or are you really loving it as well? Because seriously, this is the sweetest thing ever. And I am very much looking forward to seeing what goes on. I just want it to be, is there going to be drama at the Bistro Halloween party? I don't actually need anything horrible to happen.
No.
I just want it to be a nice Halloween party. Come on, just give us an enjoyable evening where people get on and they have funny costumes and they have bopping for apple mishaps and I just want a lovely, lovely Halloween party, and Hope and Sam to hold hands and for it to be sweet. Really.
I think Coronation Street's probably really mad that you're saying that after all of the dissing you did of fancy dress parties.
It's been a while since there's been Halloween. I mean, for fancy dress parties. And the thing I don't like about fancy dress in Coronation Street is sometimes they would just dress up in fancy dress for no particular reason and no links to why. You remember like Chesney's dressing up as army men for his stag do that one time. Or wherever it was. But yeah, I'll have Halloween characters dressing up in Halloween costumes for Halloween. That makes sense to me. Let's do it.
It is logical.
And that is everything that happened in this week's Coronation Street. Hope you enjoyed it more than we did. This really was a week. Usually, even if I'm finding Coronation Street a bit
boring,
not so great, I'll be like, ooh, Corrie's on tonight on the days that it's on. And this week I wasn't feeling that. And it's really, really rare for me to not be, oh yeah, tonight's a Corrie night. I wasn't like, oh god, gotta watch Corrie tonight. I wasn't like that. But it was just like, oh yeah, Corrie's on, okay, let's watch that then. I hope it's all right. So I hope it's going to have a bit of a turn next week.
I think my mileage on this was always going to be limited because of my dislike of Tim as a character.
So he's not your character of the week this week.
It didn't make me like him anymore to see him having a flashback after flashback. Especially, this is now 2 weeks after Stephen Reed.
Yeah, get over it, Tim.
I'm sorry to say it, but nothing that they did with the character made me sympathise with him anymore.
No, the very last scene did, we said.
Yeah, well, okay. They should have done that from the beginning. They just wasted a week of petulant stupidity and made me dislike him more than I did already, which I wouldn't have said was possible. And I also, I'm really primed to empathise with people. That's what I want to do when I watch a soap. I want to broaden my horizons and understand things from a different perspective. And I think some of the things that happened this week just didn't really manage to do that, especially with Ed and the gambling.
Tuesday was the low point. Wednesday was okay. There were some really nice friends moments. The Peter and Toya, the Gail and Sally. That's the sort of stuff I loved. But it just didn't do enough to really, really, really save the week. I think I'm gonna be harsh this week. I'm gonna give it 2.5 worthless snotty nosed brats out of 5.
I was gonna give it 2.5. Definitely kettles of vultures.
Thank you, Roy, for educating us yet again this week. As for character of the week, it's not really. I
don't know.
I had
Peter?
To be perfectly honest, the person that I enjoyed watching the most this week was Sam, and he had such a small role. He was barely in it. Toya was lovely.
Oh, Toya. I'm going to pick Toya.
You're going to pick Toya for a 2-scene
If you're going to pick Sam, I get to pick Toya.
Fine, okay. So Toya and Sam as our characters of the week. When we clearly weren't supposed to be...
It was so refreshing to see Toya pitch up on Wednesday and say, do you remember why you like me as a character? I'm just going to relate to everybody in a really sensible and wholesome and logical way. And
she was just friendly and having a bit of a laugh.
She was just a nice person.
And she didn't even mention Reggie Lasagna.
In a week of really, what a bunch of arseholes, really.
Yeah. So Sam and Toya isn't
maybe a small shout out to Asha for trying to knock some sense into her stupid brother.
Asha, she's going to be a paramedic. They hadn't forgotten.
Oh, they mentioned
They talked about her training.
Yeah, good. I'm glad that they've remembered that. I think there's a lot of mileage. But please don't turn her into another Craig where they just pitch up for no reason. When
she's going to be a top consultant within the next year. She's going to be on the fast track like Craig is in the police at the moment.
Head of the
It's just going to mean that
Association.
Every time
someone hurts themselves.
Every time that someone hurts themselves, she's going to turn up. And they don't do that Craig all the time. But I do quite like my emergency service worker characters to not have a personality because I think they sometimes can be a bit more believable and they don't have the baggage.
Well, but also anyway, you can move on with your life when they do something like the guy that killed Imran by being very blasé and going, it's Friday, or whatever it is. I'm not bothered about this. I hope he dies and not really doing a good job. So I don't think Asha would do that. I'm
sure someone's going to die on her watch and she'll be being bits about it.
Maybe she'll have flashbacks.
Oh, maybe.
That'll be something to look forward to.
Maybe it is. So, that's it for Street Talk. Let's move on to the news.